Disney is filled with so many details, of course we just have to cover them all. Disney Details, episode 152. Tanks, a lot. Over here near the exit of Indiana Jones's epic stunt spectacular, there's of course going to be several different references to the Indiana Jones films, whether it's these different posters here, which feature different locations that Indy has traveled to on some of his journeys in the original 5 films, where there's things like this drink over here, which I highly recommend not drinking. I don't know who left that behind. But let's take a look over here and talk a little bit about the history of Disney's Hollywood Studios, or Disney MGM Studios. Now, the park first opened up way back in 1989, and the Indiana Jones's epic stunt spectacular opened up later on that year as well. But when the attractions and the park in total first opened up back in 1989, the main thing was to kind of put an emphasis on movie magic and showing you a little bit about like the behind the scenes of how different movies were created. Hence, Indiana Jones' epic stunt spectacular shows us how different stunts were created. Now, back in the day, we didn't have things like special effects or DVDs or Blu-rays or whatever people are using these days. So coming to the park was an ability to actually go through and see how movies were being made. But in addition to that, to kind of pay tribute to a lot of the films that were mentioned around the parks, they decided to put little nods to the films as well. But two of my favorites are two of the biggest, which is this tank right here and this truck right here. Now, if you are a fan of the Indiana Jones films, you may recognize both of these. These are actually the tank and the truck that were actually used in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Now, the third film in the franchise did have it so Indy at one point was up on this specific tank fighting the Nazis, and then eventually he would actually take a rock and stick it inside of this tank right here, which would have it so the cannon would blow up. So when you're actually here, you are seeing two different props that were actually used in that specific film. So next time you're here, make sure you stop by and take a little look at some Disney, or I guess not Disney, Indiana Jones history, and see these two things that were actually featured in the film. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Disney Details. If you're not already subscribed, make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you tomorrow.